Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Perino, along with Judge Janine Pirro, Richard Fowler, Jesse Waters, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five.
The White House is the person or the group, whatever. They're the one trying this case. You heard who was doing all the talking. Representative from the White House. Just recently. This is all about Biden can't campaign, so he's trying to injure his opponent. They're trying to hurt the opponent because they can't win it fair and square. It's lawfare. There are a lot of terms for it. It's a third world country way of campaigning. Such a disgrace. So sad to see what's happened to our country. Our country's going to hell under Biden.
Donald Trump sounding off moments ago as his hush money criminal trial enters its final phase. Court is over for the day. The judge says he will make every effort to get the jury charges to both of the teams by the end of the day on Thursday. So they have 4-day weekend to prepare their summations. Both sides have rested their cases, and the former president will not take the stand. 8 days from now, on Tuesday, closing arguments begin, and then it's into that deliberation room, which could come as soon as Wednesday. The trial's end game not coming without some serious fireworks rocking the court. The judge clearing out the room to dress down and reprimand defense witness Bob Costello, a former Michael Cohen legal advisor, allegedly for making comments under his breath, rolling his eyes, and Costello says Cohen is full of it and lied on the stand about what Trump knew about the Stormy payments. And today, the prosecutors tried to poke holes in his testimony. And speaking of Bragg's star witness, Michael Cohen admitting he stole $60,000 from the Trump organization. The media doesn't see that as a big deal, though.
I've watched Michael interact with a lot of people over the years. He has he has all those rough edges and all the lies and all this, but there's something compelling about him at the same time. You kind of believe it, warts and all.
That Michael Cohen, of course, has a checkered past. But we see convictions all the time with cooperators who have far worse histories, contract killers, mobsters, and yet you get convictions.
The defense may think they racked up a big victory for themselves today. Now, pocketing 30 grand might be shady, but it doesn't change the facts of the case.
Trey Gowdy was inside that courtroom. He joins us here at the table to break it all down. Was it good to be back in court?
It was. I got a headache just like I did in the old days. I loved being in there, but I felt powerless. When you're an observer and you want to whisper something, particularly the judge's rulings, his strike zone was a little bit different from the prosecution and the defense. Wanted to get involved. Of course, I was a prosecutor, not a defense attorney, but I thought the strike zone was really, really small for the defense team, and it got smaller as the day went on.
Okay, Judge Janine, what do you think of the timing that we have? Like the jury not going to get this until next week. I'm really flabbergasted by that.
Well, I am as well. I mean, and just the idea that this judge is going to charge the jury on Tuesday and then they start deliberating on Wednesday. No, let me tell you how it goes in a real courtroom. Okay. I don't know where this Michon is from, but in a real courtroom, what happens is, as soon as the parties finish presenting their cases, if the defense chooses to put on one, and we know they don't have to, the judge he calls them in for a jury charge conference, and then he tells them, go right into summations. And I personally would have my court clerk get everyone's name and phone number of the person they want to call to say they're not coming home tonight. Because if I'm coming close to the end of a case, I tell them, you bring a toothbrush and a change of clothes. I don't know if I'm keeping it tonight, but chances are I might. And then my court clerk will call your wife, your girlfriend, your lover, a significant other, whoever it might be. And we're going to move this case along. I want those jurors in that deliberation room as close as possible to the evidence. And this is just prolonging it. That feeds right into the belief that they're just trying to keep Trump off the campaign trail. But I think even more stunning about all this is that when we were listening to what they were saying on those other networks, they were saying that we see convictions all the time in cases. We see killers. Well, I think that Trey would agree with me that the essence of an incredible witness is a witness who lies, is a witness who cheats and steals. A killer, in the sense of credibility, may be more credible than a thief. than someone who perjures himself. These people don't know the first thing about the law, and yet they're saying, this case is great. There is no case. No crime has been proven. I don't even know what the felony is that brings to life dead misdemeanors, and neither does anyone in that courtroom or on the jury. This is embarrassing.
We have Trey here, so if I ask you to comment and you want to ask him a question, you're on deck, as they say. Jesse Waters, your thoughts as they wrap it up, but it prolongs for another long 4-day weekend.
Average Americans see this case about sex. This is a he said, she said. This is the Democrats trying to criminalize an affair that Trump may or may not have had 20 years ago. And Trump says he didn't have an affair. He says he's being extorted. And the American public doesn't even care if he had the affair or not. We're now in Bill Clinton territory. It's about lying about sex. His numbers went up. We knew Trump was a playboy when he ran in 2016. We put him in the White House. Now, this case is so confusing. The charges are convoluted. Justice Scalia, God rest his soul, said election law is the hardest law. He doesn't even understand it. No one can see inside the courtroom. No one knows who the lawyers are. No one knows what the judges look like. It is very hard for your average news consumer to wrap their head around this case because even as news purveyors, we're relying on what's said and observed inside the courtroom. Janine is lucky enough to go in court. Trey's lucky enough. They get to experience the color. We're just all kind of grasping at straws. You look at Fox, it says, oh, well, Michael Cohen is a liar and Michael Cohen is a thief. And then you turn on MSNBC and they say, well, lying makes you more believable and it's not stealing. You're just rebalancing the bonus that you thought you were owed. All right, so now the jury is going to have 6 days to what? My phone has alerts.
7 days.
Yeah. I pick up my phone. I get an alert. Wall Street Journal. I get an alert. People Magazine. They're going to pick up their phone. They're going to see, oh, Trump expands his lead over Joe Biden. Oh, my God. How are they going to defend against that? They're going to be walking around Manhattan. They're going to see the New York Post cover, the New York Times cover. Yeah. They're going to be with all their TDS relatives and friends over Memorial Day weekend. It's a big mistake, and this whole case has been a big mistake from the beginning. And it's 100% political, and to think these jurors can take politics out of it is absolutely crazy. I'm trying to be realistic, Dana. You know I'm not going to get ahead of myself and predict something that's not going to happen because I want it to happen. I believe this is going to result in a conviction, and then the minute it hits, all of the media is going to pump out these polls that show Trump now losing momentum. They're going to manufacture a momentum loss, and that's how they're going to try to push this thing forward because Biden campaign's dead in the water.
You can imagine the editors would tell all of the reporters in the papers, you have to refer to him now as convicted felon and former President Donald Trump.
The jury isn't heading to a monastery. They're returning to the very environment that primed them for their bias to begin with. That's intended. They know that. Sure as hell, they're hoping the impact of the implosion of the case will fade over time when they return. You're leaving, essentially the jurors left the cesspool of New York City to the sanitized environment of the courtroom, only to return to the same cesspool. It's like going from a porta potty at the New York City Marathon to a sterile operating room and then returning to the porta potty. Why did you go to the courtroom to begin with? Why did we waste our time? You're just putting them among their friends, their relatives, social media, the TikTok videos, everything that will contaminate them will recontaminate, and your brain starts to work again. You start to all the stuff that you heard, the facts, that Cohen's a piece of crap will all go away. And these media folks, they need to stop and take a breath and ask themselves what this derangement is doing to them. Did Donnie Deutsch ever think in his life that he would put all his trust in a perjurer, a fraudster, and a thief because he hates Donald Trump? This is the Hitler excuse at work. I've talked about this. If you brand something Hitler, then your behavior, no matter how abysmal it is excused. This is why nobody trust the election system. If they rig the justice system, crawl into bed with criminals to fight Hitler, why wouldn't they resort to some kind of heroic malfeasance when it comes to elections? Right now, they're targeting hundreds of Republican lawyers with legal action right before an election. Wow, there's another coincidence. Peter Navarro is still in jail. They're targeting Trump, obviously. How naive are you to think that this stuff isn't going to continue and spread into other avenues of our life?
I want to get to Richard in just a second, but because you were in the courtroom and because of your experience, do you want to comment on the jury having this length of time?
It is really hard for me to understand why the judge is allowing this much time between the last piece of evidence. No more evidence is coming in. In fact, the judge is going to say summation is not evidence. So this much time, this much opportunity. I'm not known for my hopefulness, Dana, but I usually think something talismanic happens when people take an oath. I've seen juries do the right thing too many times. I just think the more time that passes, the more temptation there is to go and search and do your own research. I would have, in South Carolina, we would be waiting on a verdict right now. We would have already given closing argument.
Okay, Richard, let's give you the last word.
Sure. Maybe I'm the only person who disagrees here on this panel.
You might be.
But I actually think I don't want to make a prediction here, but I think the former president, is going to walk. And I'll tell you why.
I agree with you.
Thank you. Look, listen, there's three numbers that matters here, 7, 12, and 2. Now, there's 7 days that we're going to have to wait for them to go back into court, right? There's 12 jurors, and I think there'll be 2 weeks since they've heard from Michael Cohen, which is this all-star witness for the prosecution. The farther and farther they get away from this testimony, the less likely they are to remember it. The less likely they are to remember it means they'll be like, well, wait, what did he do again? Did he really take the money? Did he really sign it? Well, maybe he didn't do it. To Jesse's point, this is really complicated. Even though there's 2 lawyers on this jury, maybe he didn't, maybe he didn't. Can I prove this beyond the shadow of reasonable doubt? 101% that he did this? I'm not sure. So guess what? I'm going to say he didn't do it. And I think the 7 days, if you listen to the president, he would say this jury's rigged or that the judge is rigged. The fact that the judge gave them 7 days says to me that this judge is like, I just want them to have a good Memorial Day, and they're going to come back.
Shame on him.
Sure, but I think if they were closing arguments today, they would be more likely to get a conviction than there was 7 days for them going home and not thinking about this case versus the other way around.
The first time I've ever agreed with Richard Fowler.
Wow, let's memorialize this.
Can I say something? I agree with Trey. I mean, I really believe that the juries try to get it right. I do. As hard as I can be on some of these people that I've seen, I really hope that you're right and that the jury gets it.
There's 2 lawyers on this jury.
All right.
Like that's a good thing?
I said
There's 2 lawyers at
that
this
was
table.
positive. All right, Trey is going to stick around because there's much more drama to talk about on the legal scene.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.